So, guys, oftentimes MMA fans are having the debate of who is the greatest MMA fighter of all time, and they put on different names. When I'm looking at the greatest fighters of all time, right now I'm kind of focusing on the fighters who actually fought in the UFC. And I know you guys can talk about like Fedor Emelianenko, and you can say he's probably one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time. But he fought outside UFC, which doesn't take any value away from it. But it's just for my own video purposes. I'm only doing it for the UFC fighters, and that's the poll that I actually put. So I added four names: John Jones, GSP, Demetrius Johnson, and I put Khabib name over there as well. And most of the fans actually think that Demetrius Johnson is actually the greatest fighter of all time. Now, when it comes to some of the discussions, when it comes to people actually discussing and we're talking about like in the fight business, Demetrius Johnson is not given as much of a value, and I think it's because he's a flyweight. Even though he actually did not just fight in the UFC, he also went to a different promotion, won championship, and he also won a championship over there. He also had a match against Rotank in a kickboxer versus mixed kickboxing and MMA rules, and he did very well in the match. He actually won the match in the second round. So I think DJ doesn't get the respect that he deserves because he was in the 125 division, which was not making a lot of money, and he wasn't a big star himself. Like, he wasn't generating the massive amount of cash, I guess, because people were not interested in the division, and he also was not one of the bigger trash talkers. But like, I want your unbiased opinion on this. I can share the records of all of those guys. So if you look at the record of Demetrius Johnson, is 25 wins, 4 losses. He's only got 4 losses and he's got 25 wins. And I'm actually going to pull up his wins as well. So Adriano Moraes, he beat him. Adriano Moraes twice, 2023 and 2022. He lost to Adriano Moraes in the first fight, and then he avenged the loss, and then he beat him again. And then he also beat a Rotank. He beat Danny Kingat in one championship. He beat Tatsumito Wada. He beat Yutuyo Wakamatsu in the one championship. So he had a lot of wins in the one championship as well. So I think that's why I just put him above like most of the people. He lost to Henry Cejudo, the last fight in the UFC. Ray Borg. Then he beat Ray Borg, Wilson Reyes, Tim Elliott. Okay, so people also look at the competition of DJ and they say his competition is probably not as good. So now I'm going to look at the competition of Khabib Nurmagomedov. So Khabib Nurmagomedov, before the UFC, people don't really appreciate his competition before that. But in UFC, his competition was really high. And one of the reasons people praise Khabib is because he was the most dominant fighter of all time. You cannot deny that. Justin Gaethje, second round. Dustin Poirier, third round finish. Conor McGregor, fourth round finish. Alec Quinta completely demolished him for like 5 rounds. Edson Barboza just dominated him for 3 rounds. Michael Johnson. So Khabib's resume is actually pretty solid. Daryl Horcher, Rafael Dos Anjos, former champion, Pat Healy, Abel Trujillo beat the record of taking him down like the most times. So Khabib's MMA record is pretty solid in the UFC. And then you have John Jones. We look at the record of John Jones. It's 28-1. Actually, impressive record. The only loss he had was via a disqualification. Although I do believe that he lost the fight to Dominic Reyes. That's another debate. But I think John Jones has the most solid resume. Is it the most dominant fighter? No, he had like difficulty in some of the fights. But I think his resume is the most solid resume that you will ever see. Stipe Miocic at the end of his career, but still Stipe Miocic. Ciryl Gane, former interim champion. Look how many champions John Jones got on his resume. Stipe Miocic, former champion. Ciryl Gane, former interim champion. Dominic Reyes, Thiago Santos, Anthony Smith, Alexander Gustafsson, Daniel Cormier. The second one was actually removed from the record. Owen St. Preux, Daniel Cormier, former champion. Glover Teixeira, former champion. Alexander Gustafsson, first time. Chael Sonnen, Vitor Belfort, former champion. Rashad Evans, former champion. Lyoto Machida, former champion. Quinton Rampage Jackson, former champion. Mauricio Rua, former champion. Ryan Bader became a champion later on in Bellator. Man, Brandon Vera. If you just look at the record of John Jones, I mean the guys that he's beat, I mean you can have an argument that this is the greatest resume of all time. You can say that those guys were probably not in their primes, but if you're just talking about the resume, if you take the steroids out of the equation, I mean, John Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. Then you have GSP, who avenged both of the losses. And because he's a clean athlete, and that's why I put a GSP as the greatest fighter of all time in my list. So in my list, it's going to be GSP. GSP's record is 26-2. He's only got 2 losses, and he was able to avenge both of the losses. He wasn't a drug cheat. He never abused steroids in his life. He had one of the best characters outside the cage, and even inside the cage, he has some pretty good competition. Winning a title in a different weight class against Michael Bisping, former champion, Johnny Hendricks. Did Johnny become a champion later on? I can't remember exactly. Okay, Nick Diaz, former champion in Strikeforce. Carlos Condit, Jake Shields, Josh Koscheck, Dan Hardy. These guys are all legends of that time, by the way. Excluding Dan Hardy, but Josh Koscheck, Jake Shields, Carlos Condit, they were considered really good at that time. Thiago Alves, BJ Penn, John Fitch, Matt Serra, Matt Hughes, Josh Koscheck. Again, he beat Matt Serra, Matt Hughes. And these are the losses that he avenged as well, because he lost to Matt Serra previously. Matt Hughes, BJ Penn, Sean Shirk, and Jason Miller, Dave Strasser. I mean, GSP has also a great resume. I just put GSP above everyone because GSP is such a clean athlete. And I know people who make argument for Khabib being the greatest fighter of all time. Khabib was the most dominant champion of all time. Like, this guy literally, if he stayed in UFC for like 4 years, 4 more years, 3 to 4 more years, or if he just had 3 to 4 more fights, I would be like, man, that's not even an argument. Khabib is just a GOAT. He's just an undisputed GOAT. But right now, I would say GSP is the GOAT of UFC. Let me know what your opinions are. My personal opinions, I put GSP as the number one fighter of all time. I put Demetrius Johnson as number 2, or maybe if you want to put John Jones. Again, John Jones is like a drug cheat, so I don't know how much that affects it. I think it's very hard to define like the greatest fighter of all time. Depends on what you're looking at. If you're like, oh, I'm looking at the fighter who actually just had the best resume. It doesn't matter if he did steroids or something like that. It doesn't really matter. John Jones. If you're looking at the fighter who's clean, who had a great resume and all of this, I'll say GSP. If you're looking at the fighter who didn't make as much money, but actually had didn't even have the best competition maybe, but did a lot of fights in a lot of different promotions and did very well, Demetrius Johnson. If you're looking for, and technically very good, probably the best because he was a flyweight, those guys are just better skill-wise. But if you're looking for a fighter who's the most dominant fighter of all time, just never had that moment in the fight where he'd be like in trouble. And that's why the only time he was a little rattle, Joe Rogan was like, oh, he's hurt, look what happened. He didn't even flinch, bro. That was against Michael Johnson. But yeah, I think it's pretty subjective.